Hello, my name is Antoine Short, and this is my midterm presentation. Today, I will be presenting the term critical race theory and why I think it should be taught in the school system. Critical race theory dates back 40 years now. It was roughly created within the 1970s and 80s time frame. It was created from a group of legal scholars, and they used it as a legal, a framework for a legal analysis on just certain things that were going on in America. One example given was the housing lines drawn in 1930. And what happened was communities had lines drawn around them, and then they were labeled as far as good and bad. And for the most part, the neighborhoods that were majority minority were the bad neighborhoods, and they weren't allowed to get loans and so forth. And even in today's time, if you look at it, in certain rural areas, they fight against affordable housing now, um, and that's a big issue. Um, Also, one of the stories that I know personally is the 1919 Elaine massacre, where a group of sharecroppers were just trying to meet to get fair and equal rights, and they ended up being gunned down. Hundreds of African Americans were killed, and maybe five whites. Um, Critical race theory is a way of understanding how America and racism has shaped our public policies and or divisive courses. And with that being said, you can look at some of the laws today that are meant to protect us, but at the same time they hinder some with their protection, or they help the racial hierarchy. The reason that the critical race theory is important is because we experience, as much as we would hate to say it, we experience racism every day. But instead of looking at everybody's individual bias and race and feelings on race, it's more on the outcomes, why this happens. Even to the point of just health issues. Why do this certain race have these certain health issues? And critical race theory can be used to just make sense of certain things, um, white or non-white. Even if we intend to be or to feed into racism or not, sometimes we can, and that's because of the lack of knowledge um, that's not supplied in the school systems. I believe that the critical race theory would increase our cultural intelligence, which is just as important as our emotional intelligence. Um, with cultural intelligence, we are able to communicate uh, cross communicational wise, and supplying that in the school system will help us out. Um, Outcomes can be rectified and looked at and fixed. It can help students identify and critique the causes of social inequity in their own lives. As far as a black man myself, I'm ashamed to say that I didn't know that all black people didn't struggle till I was in my mid 20s. I thought that all black people struggled and had it down, and now as I got older, I realized like, oh, it's like it was just a way of life. And so I believe that the critical race theory can help younger students like me make sense of our situation. Like, I would have never thought that I'd be a college student, let alone magna cum laude at this moment right now. But just I would have never thought my life would be where it's at. And I believe that critical race theory would allow younger me's to see that and why we're in the boat that we're in. Critics of it feel that it would discourage, for the most part, white students. It would bring self kind of self hate or self feelings about themselves that are not good. And so that's the argument for not teaching it. But the thing about it is, it's not saying white people are the oppressor, black people are the oppressed, more than just looking at our American system and seeing some things are unspoken, but they are the way they are. Just my county alone, this big argument for critical race theory, $7.9 million was held from the school system until teachers agreed that they would not teach anything within the critical race theory, and if they are, they're liable to get kicked out of the school system. So now that puts us in a really gray area, because how do I teach stuff without, teach our history without being able to talk about things like Jim Crow law, um, and just segregation? It learning these things and knowing them would help us. Going back to those white students that might make a disadvantage too. If you look up recently, Methodist in Fayetteville just had a young white college student who put what she didn't like about her other fellow students. It was four football students, and it was big lips, their noses, and everything that had to do with a black person. If this young lady had maybe learned about the critical race theory and just why we are the way we are, why people are this, like it almost can bring a level of empathy in these situations, because other people are able to understand each other. But um as of right now, that was of course everybody agreed to it, so teachers are not able to teach it, and students will lack true knowledge. We're going off of learning race and a lot of things at home, instead of the critical race theory. If it's taught in school, it would be a universal way to teach people about race and racism. Yeah, you're going to still have the way you learn at home and taught by mom and dad, but we might just make it make a little bit more sense. um it brings inclusion to people like me. So with that being said, I just feel that learning about the critical race theory and how it has affected certain outcomes would help us to rectify our certain situations in America today. Just looking back at things like the Black Lives Matter, who are named insurrectionists, just like the progressive farmers of America in the 1919 Elaine massacre. We have got to learn these things and know it so that we don't repeat it. But I thank you for your time. Have a great day.